Welcome, Ministry Pivot. This is Reverend Russ. Super excited to have you joining us whenever you're listening, whenever you're watching. Please don't forget to comment, to like, to subscribe, to share this. Don't forget to look at the show notes. Again, as I always say, don't forget to look at ministrypivot.com for more resources. There are articles there, and there are also past conversations there that I've had with awesome guests on this podcast. Super excited about today. We have Sister Eunique Jones Gibson, who's with us. You'll hear more about her. But one of the things that I wanted to say that we did not say in the recording, we said it about culture tags, about her brand, and about because of them we can. But please make sure you pick up. I have culture tags. I am super excited about the game, and they have now expansion packs. And so we didn't get into all of the details of the products that she's been able to birth, but I do want to make sure we go out and we support. If you're looking for a good game for your family, for your friends, for your coworkers, it is an awesome game. And now again, she has expansion packs. So if you've gone through the game already, like my family and I have, you'll be able to go and get expansion packs. And she has a web version that's coming up. She has so much going on. Super excited about that. So look forward to the conversation that I'm going to have with Sister Eunique. She shares some super gems, super awesome business principles and thoughts, and really just stories of endurance and stories of faith and kind of push as she moves through the business world. But without me talking about that anymore, don't forget that this is your season of opportunity. And let's go forward now with the conversation with Sister Eunique. Welcome, Ministry Pivot. This is Reverend Russ. I'm super excited that you decided to join us again today, tonight, this afternoon, whenever you are watching now. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. Don't forget about the show notes that you can find for this episode, and you'll be able to find those on the website or wherever you are streaming from, or wherever you're watching from, Apple or Spotify or any other network. Super excited about continuing our Ministry Pivot series, and specifically excited about continuing our series around ministry calling. God is able to pull together CEOs and business owners who, and even just officials who are leading in different areas, not quite the church, but they are leading in their gift and their God-given gift. And today we have Sister Eunique Jones Gibson, and I'm super excited to have her on. She is, I wrote some notes, but I'm going to ask her to share a little bit more about the expanse of her business. But she is a wife, she is a mom, she is an entrepreneur, she is a creative. And I also put on there, she's a boss. She's doing a ton of things just to inspire and just to uplift, but also to help us have fun as people. And so super excited about that. So would you help me thank God for Sister Eunique as she comes to the platform? Sis, thank you for getting on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much for getting on again to Ministry Pivot. You heard my intro. I was not going to try to list out everything you're doing, because every time I look, you're doing something else, and I didn't want to miss anything. Would you mind just sharing a little bit with those who maybe somehow don't know about the platforms that God has allowed you to create? Just list a little bit about kind of what you've been inspired to do over the past couple years.
Yeah, so first, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here with you. And when it comes to me, I like to consider myself a creative for good. And I've been able to create a few platforms, one by the name of Because of Them We Can. Recently created a product which is evolving into another platform just for joy and excitement as we look at our culture, and that is culture tags. And essentially what I do is I am all about culture and community and creating ways for us to celebrate one another, creating ways for us to amplify the good. And that shows up in a number of different ways. But the main focus that I have right now is with Because of We Can, with culture tags, and then my agency work.
That is awesome. Now we were talking off camera. We met I don't know, several years ago now. Shout out David Johns. He was at the Department of Ed under the Obama administration, and you were up there talking about the Because of Them We Can, and it was I've seen the bag, so that was the crazy thing. I saw the backpacks, like I saw everybody had backpacks. I didn't really get the backpack thing, but when I saw you up there and the students, and we were both talking to some middle schoolers. I had a book that I was talking to them about, but you had this whole product line, and then we've gotten some product line from that. But Can you talk a little bit about what inspired? I'm going to ask about the because of them we can first, and then I'm going to just ask about just inspired creativity. But what inspired you to say this because of we because of them we can is something that we needed to do?
Yeah, so it was back in 2013, right in January, and at the time, it was the 1 year anniversary of Trayvon Martin's murder. It was also
Wow.
we were also celebrating the reelection of the first African American president, and I just found myself in this space that a number of Black parents found themselves in, where we had a lot of hope, but we were also wrestling with a lot of fear. And as a marketer, as someone who's in the advertising industry, started out fresh out of college at Microsoft, for me, I started to think, how can I refresh Black history given the timing, but also refute these stereotypes and provide a counter narrative that is more reflective of who we are by amplifying the good. And it just came to me. I was in my kitchen one day watching my son Chase. I think he was 4 at the time. He was shadow boxing. And as I looked at him, I started to see him not as Chase, but as a little Muhammad Ali. And I started to draw comparisons between his confidence and Ali's confidence. And I thought it would be cool to dress him up and kids like him as these trailblazers and to put them alongside quotes that these trailblazers are known for, their words, their beliefs, and just launch a Black History campaign that would only run for 28 days in February 2013. And what I found out is that there were a number of people who had my same feelings, who wanted that type of content, that type of information. And it became a way to really just educate and to inspire the next generation. And so here we are 8 years later. It's still around because it has evolved into a platform that is doing the same thing, but in a number of different ways for a multitude of people.
And let me say it is awesome. If you're watching, listening, again, don't forget to comment, to share. But if you're watching, don't forget we have show notes. I'm going to list all of the products that we speak about, and of course, because of them we can. Now let me ask you. You said in your intro, and I love it. You said I am a creative for good. Is that how I heard it? Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so let me the first question that I actually had for you was, when did you realize that you were because the word creative doesn't always like float in our community heavy like that. So when did you realize that you were a creative? When did you realize that that was something that God had given you to kind of just create stuff?
Yeah, I think we're all creatives, to be honest with you. I think that, we all have it in us to create something to put into the universe, into the world to make it better. For me, I really started to hone in on my gifts, my talent, but beyond that, really my purpose in 2016, 2017. Before then, I had been creating. I had been producing campaigns, producing products for myself, for other brands, but I was really able to crystallize the connective tissue in 2016 and understand that my creative has a specific purpose. And I think that's what's challenging for a number of people who find themselves in a space where they feel like they're creatives or they're artists or whatever it is they may be. It's like, but for what? Right? Like, what's the consistent thread? And for mine was culture and community, and just helping people to see and to be their best selves. And so I would say around 2016 was when I really started to tap into not just the gift, but the reason behind it.
I think that's great, and I'm a pivot my first comment on us not being creative, really just on the thought of creative, but along that line with you understanding that there was something for you. I've been using this text throughout this series, the text in the Bible from Exodus, where Moses is talking to God, and Moses is saying he's not ready for this thing; it's bigger than him, and God is saying he's saying to God, well, how do I do it? And God is saying, yo, what's in your hand? Like, you've been holding this thing this whole time and you haven't used it. Can you talk a little bit more? Because I also, and I believe I'm right in this. I saw you write something a while back about, come on, Russ, about having your trademarks, but also like just securing websites, like securing ideas just in case. And because what I'm hearing you say, and what I think for some people may be helpful, is that sometimes you shoot a shot, it doesn't work. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't shoot the next shot. Can you just talk a little bit to encourage somebody around that creative? Because sometimes people think that if I'm creative, then when I do it, it's going to work. And sometimes that's not the case first time off.
Oftentimes that's not the case. Um, well, I'm in this space where I feel like I'm in a season of yes, where I'm getting a lot more yeses than I am no's. I'm in a season of open doors where
That's
the doors
good.
are opening more than they are closed. But I was in a season that was counter to all of that. And I think that as a person in general who is trying and who is taking risks and who is putting themselves out there, you have to get comfortable with the fact that you're going to fail. I think it's a matter of failing forward. And so I think that as far as I'm concerned, yes, I buy domains. If I get an idea, if I have something solid, I might file a trademark with an intent to use through my attorney. I mean, there are a number of things that I'll do. I'll secure social media handles. There's a website or a domain that I purchased 6 years ago that I haven't done anything with because it took 6 years to actually get the vision for it. But I knew it was something good when I started to think about it. But actually seeing the full picture has taken 6 years, and I haven't talked about it publicly. I have a little bit, but not in a big space. And so I think it's a matter of just staying ready. Right. I think it's in remaining in a space where you never know when or how God might use you or one of your
Yeah.
ideas. And so what you got to do is build a treasure chest of them, because it might not be the one that you thought was going to hit that actually takes off. But you have to get comfortable with understanding that failure is a part of the process. And I think what happens with us is we get so caught up on the idea of failing that we don't move. But
Hmm.
you, like, for me, people are always like, how can you, how is it that you're able to put so much out there in a short amount of time, and Eunique, you don't miss? And it's like, because I have become comfortable with the idea that I might fail. Like, failure for me is not really a failure. You see what I'm saying? Like, for
Good.
me to fail, like, it's not a loss. It's actually
Yeah.
just a learning. And so you talk about Moses and him saying, you have it in your hand. And, I think about Nehemiah, right? And it's just a focus and understanding that I am building something good. I'm doing a good work. Like, I can't be distracted. I can't come down. And whatever happens along that journey happens, but I'm still focused on the work.
Yeah, no, I think that's dope, and I really hope that those who are watching, who are listening, hearing, because you're throwing stuff out. So I'm going, and I didn't ask you this off camera before, but I'm gonna say it now. I'm be looking for the book because I think you're just saying stuff, right? So, and I know it's in you, and maybe you're writing the book and you haven't shared it yet, but you said something that I think is key. That a lot of the times, and even with stuff in the church world for us, right? We'll have projects, we'll have stuff, but we'll have a core team that we work with. We won't share it with everybody until we're clear on the direction, because we need to make sure that the process is right. But what I heard you just say as well is that there are some things that you're working on that you don't tell people, not just because it's not ready yet, but also because you want to make sure that when it's ready, it's positioned in the right place. And I think sometimes we tell the wrong people stuff and it doesn't work for our benefit. It doesn't help us because, one, we're telling the wrong people, right? Jim Collins has that book, Good to Great. He talks about the folk on the inside the seat, and then the inside the car, and then the folk on the right seats. But I think that that's really, really key. And so I just wanted to point that out to make sure people heard kind of that part. I got another question for you, and it's specifically around your bets. So and I'm gonna say it this way. I saw a picture of you, your husband, your kids, beautiful family, by the way. Y'all are just doing it's awesome. It's inspiring for us who are looking and seeing you rock. But I saw y'all buy a warehouse, right? And then it was a next step that I saw you all buy a warehouse, and I saw you all put this Jay-Z quote in the warehouse, and then now I see the warehouse packed with culture tags. But there was a process between that. Between you getting the warehouse, between you getting the deal with Target and even other outlets now that you'll have once this airs. But can you talk about what that process was? What made you say, okay, cool, I'm gonna get this warehouse for this product that I'm trusting and believing that people are gonna purchase in bulk. And then we have culture tags. We love it, and I love the fact that you have the separate series of culture tags now for us to be able to get as well. So I'm gonna pause. I said a lot. So any of that you want to talk about, I'm cool.
Yeah, so for us, when it came to culture tags, because we had the experience from a product development and fulfillment perspective with Because of Them We Can, not only our adult apparel, but in particular the thousands of boxes that we ship per month, because we have a Black History box that we launched in 2018. Just understood that we needed more space, didn't know how much space, but because of all of the pre-orders, because of the way people just gravitated towards culture tags, we just decided to bet on ourselves and to secure the space before we had the product to fill it or the deals to substantiate it. We just knew that this is a hit. And I think that sometimes, prayerfully, everybody will experience something, no matter if it's, small or on a grand scale, where in your knower, like, this is good. Like, this is going to take off. And that was the feeling that I had with culture tags in December of 2019, when I was debuting a prototype to my family and friends at our New Year's Eve party. And so once we launched the Kickstarter and it was funded within a few hours, and we were getting, tons of pre-orders every single day before we shipped the product. We had the distribution deal. We were with our distributor before we ever shipped the product. And then in June of 2020, we landed our deal with Target. And now here we are: Target, Walmart, Kohl's, Urban Outfitters, Hot Topic, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Myers. Like, there are just so many other yeses that had hit, but those yeses weren't in place when we secured the space. We just had the vision to understand that it's coming, and to understand that when it comes to something that you believe in, no one should be able to outwork you on your vision. And so even if we got a bunch of no's, no one will outwork us with our channels and our paths to the direct consumer like you. And so what's funny is, yes, we got that space. It's a dope space. We painted the floors yellow, which is like, yellow and black, because I went to Bowie State University. Those are my colors. I always try to infuse in my products. Painted the Jay-Z quote on the wall because it's true. The genius thing that we did is we didn't give up. And that's the genius thing that everyone has the ability to do when you feel it, to keep going. But we've outgrown that space. And so, we're negotiating a lease right now for something that's like 3-4 times that size. And we probably should go a little bit larger, but we're just going based off of what's available right now because we need space like yesterday. But we saw it. We saw it before everyone else saw it. And I think that's why it's so important to just be in tune with what you're doing and why you're doing it, and understanding what you can do and what God has empowered you to do.
I think that is phenomenal, and I'm hoping people aren't missing these points. And so our church, shout out Kingdom Fellowship, my pastor, Pastor Watley. When we moved into the building that we're leasing, it was triple the space that we were in. And the first day, he told county execs and others, "Yo, I appreciate this. We need somewhere that we own because this is too small." When you were going about talking about this, I heard it. I heard you say, I heard that it was coming, that it was too small, and that is phenomenal, that you all are growing at such a clip, at such a pace, and that I believe by the time this is aired, we'll put this out in May, but by the time people hear this, I believe that there'll be even more. But talk to me about the pivot that we haven't talked about just yet, COVID. We're praying for all of the people who lost loved ones, who were impacted. My family was impacted. We're praying for everybody. But I do also believe that COVID made business leaders pivot in a way that we might not have had COVID not happened. Can you just talk a little bit about what pivots kind of happened due to COVID?
Yeah. So for me, it's interesting. So a lot of my business, all of my businesses operate online. Since I came out of college, I just understood that the internet and that mobile in particular were going to be the next wave. And so Because of Them We Can is something that functions online. And then with culture tags and the Because of Them We Can box, it was more so being in position. And so, for instance, COVID became known to us in January, February 2020. I began to launch culture tags in December of 2019 and announced it in February of 2020. And then I'm not sure if you are familiar or you remember, But maybe in like March or April, when the state of Georgia was opening up, or they were vacillating between like, should we open, should we close, there was a meme that went viral that had like this long acronym, this long abbreviation in it. It was wild.
I
And
remember.
that was like a culture tag, right? And so what
Yeah.
ended up happening with me is I didn't necessarily have to pivot. I just had to stay in my position. And I think that and that's because of the work that I did beforehand. And so I do think that there were a number of people who had to pivot and make moves. My pivot was already in process. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
already in motion before we even found out about the pandemic. And so the lesson to me was to actually like just listen to the voice, whatever the voice is for you. For me, I heard it in December to run hard with culture tags. I could have taken my time. I could have said, you know what, I want to do this. I'm gonna wait till it's perfect. I'm gonna wait till this. I was moving fast. Like there was a sense
Yeah.
of urgency in me from
Yeah.
December to February when I launched culture tags. And then we had an event at the end of February. We had a culture tags live show. And then March is when everything shut down. And I just look
Yeah.
back and like, wow, what if I didn't move like that? So when that meme that I talked about went viral, I had a product that I could sell. Oh, you like this meme? Buy the game, right? Like this
That's
is
good.
funny. You don't have a name. You don't know what to call this. This is a culture tag. And
Yeah.
so what my original idea was to travel and to do the live shows. And so a small pivot that we made was we just transitioned everything as far as the amplification of culture tags to the online space. So we were doing virtual shows, we were doing IG lives, we were doing everything online on StreamYard to continue to amplify and promote it. But we were in position because we moved with a sense of urgency before we even saw the problem or the issue or the pandemic that is COVID. And then with my boxes, my Because of Them We Can boxes, as we all know, that there was a racial reckoning that we're still currently like deeply involved in that really
Yeah.
sparked, I won't say spark, but gained some momentum through some very tragic events of 2020. And so then you have people who are like, wow, like, how do we teach? And we're homeschooling our kids. Our kids are home. And so you have people who are like, wow, we need to, the kids need to know Black history. How can they learn Black history outside of the school? Well, I had already had a Black history subscription box that we have been running for 2 years
Wow.
before people said we need this. I was again in position because we move with a sense of urgency. We struggle through figuring things out. Does this make sense? We thought about shutting down the subscription boxes when the pandemic hit because of just supply chain and logistics issues. But our business has like, yes, it's up well over 1,000% because
Yeah.
we stayed in position and we kept pushing. We didn't have to pivot. We didn't have to pivot. We just had to push. And so I know this is like ministry pivot. I think
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
three P's that every entrepreneur, everybody who's just in general, like entrepreneur or not, there are three P's that I think everybody needs to know. You need to know when to push, you need to know when to pause, and you need to know when to pivot. And at various stages of your life, you might be at a pivot place. Then you might be at a push place, and then you might be at a pause place. But those are the three P's. And obviously, people watching this might say, Eunique, you also need to know when to pray. But like, you don't need to know when to pray because you're always praying. We're always in a
Good.
conversation with God. And so it's push, it's pause, and it's pivot. And so for me, I had some pushes that I was able to make when the pandemic hit. And then I had some small pivots, but I'm talking to friends, there were people who were at various points of the P process. But those are the three that I think everybody needs to remember because you won't always have to pivot. Sometimes you just need to pause and get clear. You need to
Yeah.
pause and assess. You need to pause and wait for an answer. And then other times you need to push because you know what? It's now or never. I need to push. I need to go hard. Everything is totally set up for me. I believe it. I have the energy. I have the vision. I have the faith. I'm going to push, 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 push. And then there are times where it's like, you know what? This isn't where I thought it would be. Or, my season here is over. Or my season in doing this has shifted. Like I'm done. I'm good. And so I'm going to pivot. But make sure that you know what P phase you're in.
I think so. Now, I said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. The book thing. So I'm hoping it's coming. We don't have time to dig into all of these now. But and I'm saying it seriously. I know we're on camera and this is live, and I'm gonna keep it in. But there's so many people who I think need to hear and need to hear it from a story that they can understand, right? And need to hear it in a way that is as clear. And those P's. So I'm a preacher, so we like alliteration. Uh, but I appreciate that. I think that is so dope. As we round out our time, I do want to try to figure out how we get you back. Let me stop and ask the question about the book thing. Is that something?
I mean, I'm sure there's a book or two in me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm writing one
Okay.
right now, not actively. Will I consider one once I have it solidified in my head and I have the space and time to do it? But in talking to friends who have written books, it's a collection of everything that you've put out into the universe, that you've tweeted, that you've posted. And so I'm sure it's
Yeah.
there. But right now, I'm just like laser focused on some other things, and I'm making myself available for opportunities like this so that those nuggets and those gems can still be dropped. But I'm sure at one
Yeah.
point, some point, there'll be a book.
I dig it, and I agree that there are several. God has been kind. I've written a couple, and I've had help authors written a couple. But and at the season, so you're right. I'm not going to press the point. This is not the time for that. But let me ask you this one question as we wrap. Really, there's two questions. One is on resources, right? One is on things that inspire you, things that people may be inspired by, whether it's a book, whether it's a podcast, something that people may be inspired by. But let me ask you this: somebody who's watching now, who's inspired, who sees what God has done, who understands that they got to keep swinging, keep hitting their shot, keep writing down what they're planning to do, and trusting God and seeing kind of what it would go. What are some of the first initial steps that they need to make? Whether they know their product, they may not know their product. They know their lane, they may not know their lane. What is an encouragement to someone who's watching on one or two things that they need to do first? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that first you have to believe it, right? You have to believe in it. You have to be convinced first before you can convince someone else. And I think that in order for you to be convinced, you have to do some of those foundational things that we learn about when we take marketing courses or classes, which is like really understanding what problem you're solving, what you're adding from a value perspective, understanding your target audience, who's going to buy this, why they're buying it, and what makes it different. I think when you know those things, you can be convinced of the product or the idea or the service that you intend to offer. And so I think that's step one, being convinced with that background knowledge of how you get there. And then I think step two is just really securing your IP, protecting it. And so buying your domains, going on GoDaddy or names.com or whatever provider you want to use to secure the URL, locking up the
Hmm.
social media handles. And you got to do all this before you tweet it, before you put it on Facebook. Oh my gosh, I got an idea, I'm going to launch. Like before you do any of that, you have to secure your ideas with your online real estate. People are out here and they're buying homes and they're buying buildings, but you could get your own home and your own building online with a domain, because that is where you
Hmm.
live on the internet. And that's where a lot of people consume and purchase products. And so I think it's securing your IP and protecting it by just taking those small steps. And then I think when you feel like you're in a good space and you've put together some sort of plan, you just have to figure out your best approach to putting this to the universe. Is this something? I wouldn't wait for it to be perfect, but how can you tease it out to a small village of individuals that you trust, who have your best interests at heart, but also who will tell you the truth, so that you can learn from it and so that you can make the optimizations to perfect whatever it is that you have.
That's great. That's great. That's great. I think all of that is super helpful. I want to ask you this last question. What are some books, podcasts, resources that can help inspire some people, some stuff that you're currently reading? We're always reading stuff. I just finished a book by the guy Adam Grant, the guy who was a part of Facebook, but it's just a good book to think differently. But what are some books that people can help them?
Yeah. So for me, my some of my favorite books are Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's the story of Nike. The Good Neighbor, which is the story of Fred Rogers, which I love because I liken myself to Fred. Fred went to divinity school, thought he was going to be this preacher or this like minister behind a pulpit, and he realized that his pulpit was on television. And so he still had a very clear purpose and a clear path that wasn't traditional, but he was still able to do what he was put here to do, and in a massive way. And so for people who are, torn between, do I need to be in the building or am I the church type of perspectives, I just love Fred Rogers' book, The Good Neighbor, and what it's like to be a good person and to do great work. I also think there's a book by the name of Contagious. I'm actually looking at it right now. Let me grab it. So Contagious, Why Ideas Catch On. It's a really a good book. And then as far as like podcasts, for me, I get inspired. I learn a lot from my village. I would say curate a village of individuals that you can learn from. We all know that iron sharpens iron. And so if you feel like you aren't sharp, if you feel uninspired, if you feel like, blah, whatever, then you've got to assess the iron or lack thereof that's in your village. And so I would say that that's the biggest thing for me, because you don't always have the opportunity to pick up a book. You won't always have the opportunity to sit and read an article. But if you are constantly interfacing and interacting with people who are just keeping you sharp because they're sharp and you're sharp, and that's the intention, to be the best you, then you'll stay where you need to be. And so those are probably my tips. And then I'm big on documentaries. I eat documentaries more than I do books, because they're just like books in motion. And so for me, it was The Toys That Made Us is a very good series that's on Netflix. I actually studied that documentary series before I launched Culture Tags, because you'll understand formulas, and you'll begin to identify things that are consistent in every success story. Oh, okay, I heard so-and-so talking about the same thing. And so I would say consume as many documentaries that have the subject matter that you're trying to learn from or about as you can.
That's awesome, and I'm not going to say the book thing again, because you're just spitting stuff, and I think it's really pivotal and helpful for people. I appreciate your time, and I thank God for all who are watching. Any last thing you want to say that maybe we didn't talk about? I'm not really sure. We could do a whole nother session. I'm clear that I have questions for you, but I want to be good. I think this is a good pausing moment. Any last minute things you want to say though?
I firmly believe that you can't hide a light. And we all know, the call or to let our light so shine. And so I think that oftentimes we just have to be who we are. We have to allow our genius, our light, our talent, our enthusiasm to really shine through. And when we hear the word, let your light, that's because we can get in front of it. We can block it. And so I would say, you can't hide a light. Tap into who you are, what's important to you, what makes you tick, and let it shine. Thank you.
Amen. 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 Thank you. Thank you for coming on again this morning. To everyone who's listening, watching, whatever you're listening, again, don't forget to like, to comment, to share, check out the show notes. We're excited that you joined us for Ministry Pivot today or tonight, whenever you're watching, and looking forward to you joining us again. Don't forget that this is your season of opportunity. She outlined it clearly, and I'm super excited to hear about the stories of impact from this session. Have a great day. Again, have a great night whenever you're watching. Talk to you soon. God bless.